You've likely heard the saying, truth is stranger than fiction. This is clearly the case with the 1977 film The Duelists by director Ridley Scott. However, when it comes to Hollywood movies based on history, that isn't always the case. Often, films will embellish historical events to make them more extraordinary or dramatic. Then there are the films that prove the saying correct. In these cases, the true historical events are actually toned down for the screen. Perhaps because the filmmakers worried that the truth was too outlandish or unbelievable. The Duelists is Ridley Scott's debut feature, and I believe one of his most underrated films. Despite a limited budget, less than $1 million, this film nonetheless showcases the stunning visual style and masterful storytelling that would later become a staple of Scott's career. In fact, how Scott achieved this effect is quite clever. The Duelists takes place during an epic time in European history, the Napoleonic Wars. However, the film never shows us a single battle scene, because Scott couldn't afford one. The epic atmosphere of the time and place is present, but serves mainly as a canvas on which a very simple story is painted. A story that focuses on two characters, two officers in Napoleon Bonaparte's army tethered together by their very powerful but archaic sense of honor. Scott based his film on a Joseph Conrad short story titled The Duel, which in turn was based on true historical events. Surprisingly, Scott's film is fairly accurate to these events, although as I alluded to earlier, the film isn't nearly as crazy as the truth. In the film, the dueling officers are Armand Dubert, played by Keith Carradine, and Gabriel Feraud, played by Harvey Keitel. However, in reality, these officers were named Dupont and Fournier-Sarlovèze. The film begins in Strasbourg in the year 1800, shortly after Napoleon became first consul of France. A lieutenant of the 3rd Hussars, or light cavalry, Dubert, volunteers to deliver an order to a fellow hussar of the 7th Regiment, Feraud. Feraud has been ordered to confine himself to his quarters as a penalty for injuring the mayor's nephew in a duel earlier that morning. Feraud takes offense not only to the message, but Dubert personally, and gives his fellow hussar little option other than to draw his sword.
You are under arrest.
Now!
For dueling, you ape!
No! You fight now.
Dubert gets the better of Feraud in their initial duel, but Feraud is predictably unsatisfied with the result. 6 months later, during a break in campaigning, the two cross paths and blades again. This time Feraud injures Dubert, so much so that he is unable to continue, but Dubert isn't off the hook yet. The pair fight 3 more duels over the course of the next 14 years, with sabers, from horseback, and finally with pistols, after which Dubert is finally able to rid himself of Feraud forever. The officer usually identified as the inspiration for Dubert is Pierre Dupont de l'Étang, who was also tasked with delivering a message to a fanatical duelist, François Fournier-Sarlovèze, an officer later called the worst subject in Napoleon's Grand Army due to his constant dueling and general bad behavior. In reality, the first duel likely occurred in 1794, 5 years into the French Revolution and 6 years before it does in the film. The story's dates were likely pushed forward so the narrative would parallel the rise and fall of Napoleon Bonaparte.
To the Emperor. Good luck to him and good luck to those that love him.
But in less than 100 days, Napoleon was defeated.
Fournier-Sarlovèze, who I'll simply call Fournier, joined the army in 1791, and the following year became a second lieutenant of the Revolutionary Army's 9th Dragoons. He was known as a staunch supporter of the Jacobins, the political club behind the Reign of Terror, which saw tens of thousands of French citizens executed or killed without trial. When the Jacobin leader, Robespierre, was himself executed in 1794, Fournier lost his rank and was imprisoned, but managed to escape and soon joined the Army of the North, where Pierre Dupont was on staff, before eventually joining the Army of Sambre-et-Meuse. Pierre Dupont had previously distinguished himself at the Battle of Valmy in 1792, as well as the campaigns of 1793, in which he forced an Austrian regiment to surrender. His relationship with Fournier likely began in Strasbourg, like the film, at least according to what might be a somewhat embellished account of the duels from Andrew Steinmetz's 1868 book, The Romance of Dueling in All Times and Countries, Volume 2, but that is my main source for the details of the duels. Fournier, who was a captain of the Hussars at this point, fatally wounded the patriarch of a well-known family in a duel, making him quite unpopular among the residents of Strasbourg. For this reason, General Moreau decided it would be a horrible idea for Fournier to attend a local ball on the night of his victim's funeral, and dispatched his aide-de-camp, Dupont, to deliver this message and bar Fournier's entry to the ball. Fournier took offense to Dupont's presence, but unlike in the film, Dupont was all too happy to draw his sword and settle the matter then and there. With a few thrusts, Dupont knocked Fournier to the ground, ending their first duel, but the never-satisfied Fournier demanded another go. In their second duel a month later, Fournier seriously injured Dupont, who also demanded they meet again. Their third duel did not have a decisive result either way, so at this point, the pair decided it would be fitting to write up a contract regarding further duels, at least until one of them either admitted defeat or was killed. The contract stated that they must duel at least once whenever within 100 miles of each other, and both parties were allowed no excuse not to attend, aside from military obligations. Both officers abided by the contract, and periodically met for what ended up being over 20 duels over the course of 19 years. By this point, attempts had been made to outlaw the practice of dueling in France, but none had quite succeeded. Napoleon himself banned the practice among his officers, but even that was not strictly enforced. Dueling among consenting gentlemen was to some degree still tolerated. As is touched on in the film, the army had an unwritten rule that an officer could not duel with another who was his superior in rank.
You cannot fight, one, if you're in different places, physical impossibility. Two, if you're of different rank, it's a breach of discipline.
However, in truth, this rule was broken when the cause of dueling was not related to military matters. While both Dupont and Fournier rose through the ranks, Dupont was a brigadier general while Fournier was only a captain, and Dupont was promoted to divisional general in 1797, while it took Fournier another 15 years to achieve this rank. If indeed Fournier's opponent was Pierre Dupont, most of the pair's duels would have been fought with Dupont as the superior officer. The most drastic difference between Scott's film and the true events is the nature of Dupont and Fournier's relationship. In the film, Dubert is bound to Feraud only by his sense of honor, but takes no joy in the duels or Feraud's company. In fact, he dreads the day when Feraud might call on him again. According to Steinmetz, the real Dupont and Fournier developed a friendly, although at times sardonic, correspondence, in which one might congratulate the other on their latest promotion or accolade while also scheduling their next duel. This may also be why two highly trained officers managed not to kill each other in over 20 duels. In truth, they didn't want to kill their opponent. They did, however, severely injure each other on a regular basis. The deadly affair finally came to a conclusion after Dupont decided he was going to get married. His wife might understand a night out with the boys, but this was ridiculous. Dupont needed a way out of his contract, so he offered Fournier the one thing he had denied him since their first encounter: a duel with pistols.
Pistols next time.
Dupont had good reason to avoid a gunfight with Fournier, as he was known to be a crack shot. It was said that for amusement, Fournier would shoot the pipes from unsuspecting hussars' mouths as they rode past him. Dupont, however, had a plan. In their final duel, the officers entered a wooded area out of sight from each other. Both carried two pistols and were allowed to fire only once from each. Dupont baited Fournier into firing on his clothing, which he had removed and held out from behind a tree. After Fournier had spent both his shots, Dupont emerged with both of his pistols cocked. Dupont then explained that Fournier's life now belonged to him. Dupont would not kill Fournier then and there, but according to their agreement, he may fire his remaining shots if the two ever crossed paths again, a meeting that never occurred.
I have submitted to your notions of honor long enough. You will now submit to mine.
The final duel occurred in 1813, according to Steinmetz. However, I should note that his dates don't completely add up if indeed Dupont was General Pierre Dupont de l'Étang. Pierre Dupont was married in 1804, only a decade after what would have been the first duel with Fournier, and he was also imprisoned from 1812 to 1814 by Napoleon for his surrender at the Battle of Bailén. Thus he could not have dueled Fournier in 1813. In his book about Fournier, General Charles Thomas argues that while the duels did occur, Fournier's opponent could not have been General Pierre Dupont, as his superior rank at the time would have prevented it. The duels between Fournier and someone named Dupont did occur, but the specific details may have been lost amid folklore and hyperbole. The story of Dupont and Fournier is fascinating because it harkens back to a very 18th century sense of honor, an ideology that was already dying out as their story concluded in the 19th century. Their story also inspired what I consider to be one of the greatest cinematic studies of the concept of honor, and the irrational power that it still holds over many of us. The next time someone cuts in front of you in line or steps on your new sneakers, think about Dupont and Fournier, and ask yourself if you really want to keep fighting that person for the next 20 years. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss more videos like this. Let me know what other movies I should break down the history behind, and check out my breakdowns of the history behind One Piece, Naruto, and Bram Stoker's Dracula, linked on the screen. Thanks for watching, and until next time.